Welcome to U.S. Law Shield Live Report in Houston, Texas. I'm Sam Malone. Thanks for joining us on Facebook Live. We'll cover a lot of content today. The great thing about being on Facebook Live, as you're watching us, type in your questions, type in your comments, and we'll pass them along and try to get them all answered and taken care of. As always, you can always visit the website for U.S. Law Shield, which is uslawshield.com. And if you miss part of this, don't worry. When we're done, it'll start from the very beginning. We have a U.S. Law Shield independent program attorney, Matt Kilgo, joining us for the first time today via Skype. Matt, how are you?
I'm great, guys. Thanks for having me.
And what part of our great country are you reporting in from?
We are based in Atlanta, Georgia. Right now I'm in Marietta, Georgia.
Fantastic. I'm sure like you guys in Georgia and us in Texas, eyes glued to the television over what happened, the shootings that took place at members of Congress in Virginia. By the way, what was running through your mind when you saw this as a independent program attorney with U.S. Law Shield?
Thank God for the Capitol Hill Police.
Amen. Amen to that. I mean, just a sicko bad guy shooting at unarmed Americans.
Yeah, and you could tell that there was going to be some backlash. Anything that puts firearms and their Second Amendment rights into proper perspective in the media, I think, is a good thing. Funnily, I haven't heard as much dissent in this one as I have in others, although I'm sure it's out there. But just glad that it went the way that it did, and we were able to save as many lives as we could.
What are the rules and regs in the great state of Georgia when it comes to, because this was like a Little League baseball field by a YMCA, what are the rules and regs of bringing guns to a sporting event? Let's start there, where there's kids in your state.
Well, in Georgia, if you are a weapons carry license holder, you can carry on virtually any private property, unless the private property owner or the person in legal control tells you that you can't. We have to draw a distinction between something that's on, let's say, a public park versus a school facility versus even these days a college facility, because Georgia just recently passed into law campus carry for public colleges, universities, and technical schools. So if it's just your average Little League park, you're a weapons carry license holder, you can carry in Georgia concealed or openly.
Wow.
And if they tell you got to leave, you got to leave. Otherwise, you're okay to carry. On school property, if it is a K through 12 post-secondary, you got to leave it in your, K through 12, you got to leave it in your car. You can have it in the car when you're picking up and dropping off, or you can put it in a locked case in the vehicle if you're a weapons carry license holder. And then with the passage of House Bill 280, the campus carry bill, you can carry as a weapons carry license holder concealed, except you can't carry it to any property that houses sporting events or any sporting events, among other limitations that they put in there. So it just depends on what level of baseball you're going to go see as to whether or not you can carry.
So bottom line is, your kids are playing Little League in Georgia. We'll take your state, where you are with U.S. Law Shield as an independent program attorney, and you're going to go see little Tommy, little Stevie play ball tonight. It's okay as long as you have your license, your state-issued license, to carry on the outside, not just concealed, to the ball game.
Exactly. You can carry openly or concealed. Probably going to cause a few more stares if you carry openly, but that is your right in Georgia. With a weapons carry license, you can carry onto public or private property. Now, if, as I said, someone in legal control of the property asks you to leave, then you've got to leave. Otherwise, it's criminal trespass.
And you know what, Matt? It's like we have here in Texas. There are so many rules and regulations when it comes to embracing our Second Amendment right. It's almost like it's set up for you to trip up and screw up.
I would agree with that. Now, Georgia is different from a lot of states. Beginning in 2008, 2010, and 2014, the Georgia General Assembly, which is what we call our state legislature, went leaps and bounds beyond most other states to give back to us the rights that we first inherited when the Second Amendment was ratified in 1790. So whereas in years past we couldn't carry to church, we couldn't carry to a bar, now you can with certain permission in church and in a bar if you want, unless they tell you have to leave. So Georgia has come a long, long way in the past 8 or so years in giving back to its residents the the rights that we should have had from the very founding of the nation.
And real quick, when you say they ask you to leave if you're in a bar, in Texas we have the red 51% sign, for instance, that tells you. Is that the same thing in Georgia, or is it a verbal, please leave?
It's different in Georgia. Georgia doesn't have an issue. And what I understand you mean is that 51% of the revenue from the building is derived from alcohol, correct?
Correct. So
not the same in Georgia. There's even a field of thought, and I tend to subscribe to this as well, that a posted sign is no good. If they want you to leave, they're going to have to actually ask you, Mr. Malone, you have to leave. If you don't, then it becomes a problem. But so long as you follow their commands, then you're not in violation of any law. And there are no 51% or 30-06 signs or anything like that really in Georgia.
Amazing. Matt Kilgo, independent program attorney, U.S. Law Shield. So here's the I thought we were the great state for our Second Amendment followers. But in Georgia, you guys think, it's a sign. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. I have to verbally tell you, Matt, please, leave the room. Please leave the bar. Please leave the church, what have you.
Well, and that's my considered legal opinion, if you will. One of the very first things I tell my client, doesn't matter if you've done anything right or wrong, you can still be arrested. Doesn't matter if you do anything right or wrong, you can still be sued. So even if you are in the right, have a plan to protect yourself, both physically and afterwards. If you've protected yourself, take that extra leap. Make sure you have an attorney, one who prefers blue suits, and make sure you're able to get to your attorney so your attorney can assist you. Those are two of the main things I tell my clients. The third, probably most important, is everyone has a right to remain silent. Very few people have the ability.
Well said. Matt Kilgo, independent program attorney, U.S. Law Shield in Georgia. We are at the news desk in Texas. Let me ask you about going back to the shooting again. We're getting from many different sources that the weapon used was an SKS, which fires a 7.62 round. He also had a Smith & Wesson 9mm, but I guess the damage was done with the SKS. An older rifle in that, I guess, AK-47 family, pre. Does it matter when buying a gun or a weapon in Georgia, the age of it? If it's something that's 20, 30, 40 years old, does it matter versus going to the store and buying it out of the box when it comes to the rules?
Not necessarily. The only real difference is if you are purchasing an antique. And there are specific federal rules and state rules about the age of the firearm and whether it's smooth bore or rifled bore. But by and large, no. The SKS of the type that this gentleman used, you can buy at, I won't name any place, but it sounds like Sabella's. You can buy them at Cabela's or really any place like that. These mid-40s 7.62 by 39 variants, which I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, that's the same type of rifle that was used by the gentleman in Dallas during the protest back a few months ago.
Yeah, the attack at used against the police officers.
Yes, there were several police officers injured in that one.
Yeah, I believe so. So going back, it doesn't really matter the age. And in Georgia, if I want to sell you, you and I are buddies, we're in the same office building, I say, by the way, you know what, Matt, I have this SKS, I don't use it. I'm a Colt AR-15 kind of guy, with a .223 round. Hey, you want to buy it? Can I sell it to you in the parking lot in Georgia? Or are
Absolutely.
there more rules and regs about that?
Nope. It's like any other type of property. You can sell it. Now, if it is a dangerous weapon, if it's an automatic weapon, there are certain rules that, the NFA rules that require you to make proper, to transfer it properly using an FFL. But other than that, rifles, shotguns, pistols, semi-automatic revolvers, they're just like any other piece of property. You can sell to anyone as long as you know or have should reason to believe that they're not in violation of the law by selling to them.
Got it. Some questions. By the way, you can always leave your questions and comments on the Facebook page at U.S. Law Shield. Melissa says, the Guns Everywhere law made it harder for employers to prevent firearms at work, right? So what should employers do if someone comes to work with a gun unexpectedly? Maybe they have a rule at work where you can't bring your firearms and you left it in your pocket, your bag, your whatever. Will you run out right away and ditch the gun?
Well, that's a good question, and she's correct. The House bill that they call Guns Everywhere is the Safe Carry and Protection Act in 2014. did make it more difficult in the building. The law in Georgia treats the employer as the owner of the building, which means if the employer says no, you can't do it in the building. However, they can't keep you from carrying in your own car in the parking lot if you're a weapons carry license holder, it is your car, not a company car, and it's out of sight. Not only that, they cannot condition your employment on a promise that you won't bring it. And there's all kinds of rules involved here. If it's a parking facility that's not secured, then those are the rules. If it has gates and bars and codes and security guards, that's a different story. But the General Assembly did a balancing act. They said, well, you can't keep a prospective employee or an employee from bringing the firearm, but at the same time, you can't really be sued for firing them if they do, because Georgia's still a work-at-will state, and there's no additional liability that's been placed on the employer. So it did make it harder inside the building, but there are still situations in which you can still carry and protect yourself in your own vehicle.
That's why we need U.S. Law Shield, because if I were to move to your state for a job, I would want to know, A, can I bring my gun to work? B, what if the employer says, no, you can't? C, what if it's just an open parking lot versus a gated, controlled parking lot with a guard and the gate arm goes up? There's a lot of, Matt, it gets awful complicated after a while.
Yeah, tell me about it.
It's crazy. One more thing, and we'll get to more comments and stuff. I'm eager to know about what's going on at Georgia college campuses with recently passed legislation about open carry. Let's say, the Georgia Bulldogs are playing. Go Dogs, I believe y'all say out there.
I don't say that, but a lot of my friends do.
Hey, don't hate. But what are the rules about bringing your Beretta to a football game or a tailgating party?
If you want to bring your Beretta 380 and put it in your pocket, as long as you're tailgating, that should be fine. Now, the issue becomes, where are you? If you're in a building that's used for athletic sporting events, no, you can't do it. If you're on property that's used for athletic sporting events, then you can't do it. You can't take it into buildings or property for athletic sporting events, into any type of student housing, which includes a dorm. You must have a weapons carry license. It must be concealed. You can't carry it to school admin offices, anywhere there are child care spaces. So there are a lot of limitations on it. There were several interest groups who tried to pass it last year, and the bill was never signed. In fact, the bill was vetoed by the governor because the governor wanted more strict limitations on carrying in school in spaces where high school students might be taking classes or where there are child care spaces. But I say all that to say, if you're tailgating not on the official Sanford Stadium property, then I think you're going to be okay. And I think even the University of Georgia, they've issued a couple of statements about that.
All right, so once again, recap. In the state of Georgia, I'm going to a football game. You listed a lot of places where we can't. Give me some of the places where we can carry legally Saturday football.
If you park your car and you're walking on campus, walking between the buildings on campus, you can carry. I think if you're walking through the buildings on campus, the student activity center, the places you may have to go alone, like the bathroom, yes, you can carry, just not into the stadium, not where the athletic contest is being held. At that point, you're going to have to leave it in your vehicle. But and this also, by the way, applies to public universities. Does not apply to private universities. They were carved out.
Right. So
private universities still make their own rules. I know you guys have SMU. If SMU were here, they'd be able to make their own rules. So it's small steps to get to where we really want, I think, but it's a very good first step in the right direction.
Amazing. Matt Kilgo, who's an independent program attorney with U.S. Law Shield. We're on Facebook Live. I'm Sam Malone in Houston. Here's a question from Matt who says, do you have advice for any attorney who wants to learn more about representing clients who have their Second Amendment civil rights violated or similar criminal defendants? And it says also, are there any CLE or MCLE programs that you know about? So what advice would you give? An attorney has a client whose Second Amendment rights are violated? Don't you attorneys know everything about every possible thing in the law?
Absolutely. That's what I'm supposed to say, right?
Exactly.
Well, the old joke is there's a reason they still call it a practice. I would say in that scenario, to our listener, to our viewer, Matt, there are CLEs available. The NRA CLE, this past NRA convention, which was in Atlanta, fantastic CLE. There's also a yearly CLE for firearms that's done in December at the State Bar. There are several prominent companies that do them as well. Get out there and talk with the other lawyers. Give me a call. I'm in the bar directory. I'll be happy to give you a hand and to help you out. You'll find that there are some lawyers who shy away from gun cases because they feel like they are difficult cases, and they can be very difficult cases. But this is really in one location where the criminal process and the constitutional process really meet head on, and where you can really do some of the most good as a lawyer is helping people protect themselves and helping them protect their families. So I would say take a case, work the case, look at the law, go to the GeorgiaCarry.org website. They have some great information there. Plenty of great websites out there, plenty of great information by the bar, and obviously you can always associate me for a reasonable fee.
Interesting. Matt Kilgo, independent program attorney, U.S. Law Shield. You said doing gun work, gun trials can be tough, right? Gun defense. Mm-hmm. What makes it so tough if it's the second item in the Bill of Rights about our right to keep and bear arms and it shouldn't be infringed?
Well, you know that guns are so polarizing. In Georgia, maybe not as much so as in other places, but you also have to remember Atlanta is there are very few people who are actually born in Georgia who live in Atlanta. So people come from all over the world to live and work here in Atlanta, and they all bring their own experience and their own prejudice, for lack of a better word, about self-protection and firearms. So just striking a jury in a case like this, you're not picking 6 people or 12 people that you like. You're picking the people you like least and kicking them off the jury. And the hardest part sometimes is ferreting out those prejudices that underlie people's reasoning to try and do the best job for your client. So it can make it, especially for lawyers, trial lawyers who are trained in attempting to win their case by picking the right jury, can make it very difficult to find who is most sympathetic, or if not sympathetic, at least the least anti-gun among all the people that come in.
Got it. Matt Kilgo, who's an independent program attorney with U.S. Law Shield, on our Facebook Live session. Real quick, what's it like to get a concealed handgun license or a license to carry in Georgia, where you are? In Texas, when I got mine, 20-something years ago, you had to have your fingerprints, your palm prints went to the FBI, you did a complete background check, you did the written test, you did the shooting test, and you paid your fee. I may have forgotten something. And you had to have a picture taken. So maybe 7 things. Is that pretty much par for the course in Georgia?
You don't have to take a class here. You go down to the probate court of the county in which you reside. You pay them $85 to $100. Everybody tacks on a few junk fees here and there. They take your fingerprints, and 2 weeks later, if you qualify, your license comes in the mail. Georgia is what we call a shall issue state. They cannot keep you from getting that license if you qualify. If you're not prohibited, they got to give it to you. Go down and get it. And that's what I tell people. Even if you don't carry every day, get that license. It's a right that you have. And if you don't exercise that right, it's like not having it.
What do you think about the fact that we have to go through a course and sit through, 6, 8, 10 hours worth of classroom about the liability of, if you had, gosh forbid, had to use it, the downside? What do you think about going? I'm a fan of classes, to be honest with you.
Well, and on a personal level, I'm a fan of classes as well. I take classes. My wife takes classes. My 7 and 11-year-olds have taken classes. So from a personal perspective, I like that because I'm informed. My children are more well-informed. Statistically, children who understand or are familiar with firearms and firearm safety are less likely to be involved in a negligent discharge. I think one of the advantages of being a lawyer at my age, I've been a lawyer almost 20 years now, is I realize I don't always have to have an opinion. And if I do, I don't always have to share it. But I will share with you that many of my friends would love Georgia to have a class. I think it would open us up to reciprocity with other states, meaning we could then carry in other states because there are states that require that. I'm comfortable with my level of knowledge. I'm always looking to add more. There are people out there who, you have to take a class to be able to drive, but you don't have to take a class to to own a firearm, and that concerns a lot of people. And I understand there's an argument there for that. And I think in the future it may be that the General Assembly will require that. I'm just glad they don't.
Exactly. And listen, and that's the beauty of states' rights. That's your state. Knock yourselves out. Y'all voted for the legislature. They're the ones who passed the rules and the laws out there. Great job. In Atlanta, Georgia area, metropolitan area in Marietta, independent program attorney Matt Kilgo joining us, part of U.S. Law Shield on Facebook Live. Matt, I appreciate you taking the time to be here to talk to America and to lend your expertise.
Hey, I'm so happy to do it. You guys call me back anytime.
Done deal. Done deal. Any more comments or questions, leave them on our Facebook page at U.S. Law Shield, where you're watching this right now. And if you just tuned in and missed part of it, great info from Matt in Georgia. It'll start right up again. Thanks for viewing. In Houston, Texas, I'm Sam Malone.